Let me ask you a question. Where will be the next threat of the world peace come from? Will the war in Ukraine spread out to Europe? Or will West Asia flare up again? Or will it be Africa? What about the Indo-Pacific where tensions are already high? We'll see about that shortly. Good afternoon. This is the Ambassador. With me, your Ambassador, Jennifer Makau. Now, continuing with our questions. Where do you think the next threat of the world peace will come from? Well, I have a video for you. Earlier this week, there was a significant escalation. Let's watch. Now, let me explain about this show. China and the Philippines clashed again in the South China Sea of the East Philippine Sea as the Chinese Coast Guard targeted vessels from Manila. They fired water cannons and damaged the Philippines ship. And this is becoming a recurring practice. Do you know how many times China has done this in the year? How many times they have targeted the Philippine ships in the last 4 months? At least 20 times. And it is unlikely to stop. So what is the solution? How should one push back against this Chinese aggression? The United States thinks that it has the answer, and that is the new regional alliance. They already have a Quad and the AUKUS, but now they have together formed a new group with a brand new name. It is called the Squad. And you are not talking about the Hollywood film here. This involves actual countries. It is an informal nickname given to Pentagon insiders. 4 countries are members of the Squad: Australia, Japan, Philippines, and the United States. And what is the purpose of this alliance? This is to protect the Indo-Pacific. And how do they work? It is a bit like how the neighborhood watch works. For example, your apartment complex or your community, you hire a team of security personnel who keep check in the neighborhood and conduct patrol to keep the residents safe. And the Squad is expected to do the same. The Squad has 3 members plus India. And the Squad, we are talking of the Quad, has 3 members plus India. And the Squad has the Philippines in India's place now. And they are going to maintain freedom of navigation to keep all ships and boats safe. And that is their purpose. That is the purpose, the new purpose of Squad, the nickname for Pentagon. The Squad carried out their first military drill last month. It was a joint maritime patrol, and now they are looking to ramp up these drills. The defense team of the Squads met in Hawaii last week, and this came from the meeting. Listen in.
Just last year in Singapore, the defense ministers from Australia, Japan, the Philippines, and the United States met together for the first time. Being the second of its kind, built on that momentum, and it helped advance a vision that our 4 democracies share for a free and open Indo.
He's talked about a meeting in Singapore last year. That was the first meeting of the alliance. And now within a year, the Squad has reconvened to devise a plan to counter China. And there are 2 elements to their plan. The first, the military drills. They will increase their frequency of such exercises to improve their interoperability. And all these are working together. The second part is strengthening Manila's defenses. The Philippines want to modernize its armed forces. It wants to invest $35 billion on defense upgrades on the next decade. And where will the money go? Into buying more ships, aircrafts, and radars. And members of the Squad want to help Manila. They have agreed to give security assistance. Their terms are still being discussed. And needless to say, China is keeping a close eye on these developments. Before the meeting in Hawaii, the Global Times published an editorial, and in a typical fashion, these 2 sounded like a warning. It is said, the Squad will, and I'm quoting, the Squad will ultimately lead to the deterioration of the Philippine security environment. So basically, they are saying Philippines are making a mistake. The Squad will only make neighborhood more unsafe. And that is China's threat / their warning. Last month, Beijing complained about their joint military drills too. Let's listen.
Attempts to bring in external forces to safeguard its so-called security will only lead to greater insecurity for itself, potentially turning itself into pawns in others' schemes.
Well, expect Beijing to keep pushing back. The fact is China aggressor in South China Sea. It has a massive military presence there. Manila has counted more than 50 Chinese ships and vessels, and that is in the West Philippine Sea alone. Taiwan too is on the edge. It says China has turned 3 islands into military bases. We are talking of the Subi Reef, the Fiery Cross Reef, and the Mischief Reef. They are all close to Taiwan, and Taipei says Chinese bases are quote-unquote enormous. They were released by the Japan in March, and what do they show? The Spratly Islands, part of the contested South China Sea. Tokyo says China has taken over the 7 facilities there, and they are deploying vast military assets and building more bases. China is believed to have 20 outposts in the Paracel Islands, that is 2, and this is near Vietnam, another party to the Southern China Sea dispute. So basically, the PLA has surrounded these regional players, and now it is enforcing its claim by deploying its military. So a response had to come. Conflicts are the reality of our world. We must face this. And so is power and asymmetry, which is why alliances must become critical in maintaining the balance of power. But the question is, how many alliances do you really need? AUKUS or the Quad were supposed to keep China in check. So far, they have not really delivered. Will the Quad succeed with what others haven't? Well, we guess we are here to wait and see what happens.
Met together for the first time. Today's meeting, the second of its kind, built on that momentum, and it helped advance a vision that our 4 democracies share for a free and open.
The ongoing flooding crisis in Kenya shows no signs of abating as heavy rains persist, claiming the lives of over 200 people and displacing thousands. In response to the humanitarian emergency, the Kenyan government has stepped up efforts to assist those affected. Kenya's President William Ruto announced a significant aid and reconstruction efforts in response to the devastating floods that have ravaged Nairobi and other parts of the country. During a visit to the affected areas in Nairobi informal settlements, President Ruto pledged an emergency financial assistance to 10,000 Kenya shilling, that is approximately $75 to each affected household, aiming to alleviate the immediate hardship faced by those displaced by the floods. Additionally, he vowed to rebuild all the schools and destroyed by the floods, allocating 1 billion Kenya shillings approximately, that is $7.5 million for this purpose. Cabinet Secretary for Information and Communication and Digital Economy, also Eliud Owalo, assured the public that the government was taking action to assist those in need. Looking ahead, the government plans to address the long-term solutions to mitigate the future flooding, including the distilling lakes and rivers, to improve water flow and prevent further disasters. Despite reproaches of inadequate response, officials assure the public of the ongoing efforts to alleviate the humanitarian crisis caused by the floods. Here is
I will announce the construction of 20,000 houses that will help people of Nairobi living in informal settlements like this one. This will see every citizen living in dignified settlements with water, electricity, clean water, clean environment, so that citizens stop living in houses like these ones here that are swept away by floods all the time.
The
Kenyan government has set aside 1 billion Kenyan shillings to rebuild all the schools affected by floods before reopening of schools. All children in Nairobi and everywhere else in the country can go back to proper structures that they can learn in.
What the government has done so far in response to those who are stranded is to provide helicopter services to evacuate people, those whose houses were marooned by water. In equal measure, we are providing short-term relief food support to the people. so that those who are displaced can get food to eat. But long term, we are going to ensure that we do desilting of the lake so that the water from River Nyando can flow inwards towards the lake as opposed to outwards towards the households.
One thing never was the command.
Well, more on the Kenya floods. The devastating death toll of the ongoing floods in Kenya has risen to at least 228, with 72 people reported missing and 164 wounded. Government spokesperson Isaac Mwaura provided updates on Sunday stating that over 223,000 people had been affected by the floods. In Nairobi County alone, over 163 residents have been evacuated from the riparian areas, with the government arranging alternative accommodations. Here is the report.
Death toll in Kenya's devastating floods has risen to at least 228 people. 72 people are currently reported missing and 164 have been wounded. The government spokesperson Isaac Mwaura said on Sunday 5th that more than 223,000 people have been affected by the floods. He further insisted that the country remains safe for tourism. Authorities continue to enforce the evacuation order that was issued on May 2nd. This figure accounts for forcible or voluntary evacuation. 210 residents have been evacuated from riparian areas as the government arranged alternative accommodation. Weeks of heavier than usual seasonal rains, compounded by natural weather phenomena such as El Nino and natural occurring climate changes such as the Indian Ocean Dipole, have caused chaos across East Africa. Ivy Maven, GBS News.
Well, our hearts go to the affected families and those who are facing catastrophes not only in Kenya and the East Africa and the world as a whole. Now, that's not only the only news coming from Kenya. There's good hope. As in Kenya, in the heart of Nairobi, a groundbreaking startup has been transforming the healthcare access for those who struggle to afford it. A nation where lack often means choosing between healthcare and the basic necessities. Snack Health Startup, a Kenyan company, has been offering a lifeline through the introduction of a unique payment option for medical services, allowing patients to exchange their personal health information for treatment. Snack Health works by anonymizing the patient data and selling it to the pharmaceutical or the consumer health companies, while in return, a patient like Odhiambo receive virtual Hippocratic oaths, which they can use to pay for the medical consultations. Through this, the Kenya startup Snack Health believes that it has found a way to enable more people to get qualified medical attention without having to pay for it, even with cash.
Achievement, because sometimes when I want to go to an hospital for a phantom pain, I need to have some money for the consultation and everything. But with the app, I only ask Dr. Nick if I can see him through the app, if I can see him in his available hours. And he was like, yeah, you can just come, we will sort that with the app owners.
Using this application for about 2 years, and it has really changed the way I practice. I'm now able to put my available times on the application, and the patient on the other side is able to see the time. This has improved the time management such that the patient doesn't have to wait for too long, and now I am also able to earn through the app.
When the patient logs on our platform, he has two choices: either to take part of our data monetization program or just simply pay via M-Pesa, pay cash, and proceed to book a consultation. If they choose to be part of our data monetization, which again our data is all anonymized, they will earn at least 33% or a third of the earnings from our data.
Well, that's a big up coming from Kenya's SNAP project. Now moving on to Johannesburg. A prerogative report implicated the city of Johannesburg in one of the South Africa's deadliest tragedies of a fire that engulfed a 5-story building in downtown, that is Johannesburg, last August, claiming the lives of 76 people, including 12 children, and leaving 86 others injured, attributed to the neglect and the mismanagement of the city authorities. The report delivered by the retired judge Sisi Kampepe painted a grim picture of the building's dire condition and the city Johannesburg failure to address it. The judge missed no words in her assessment, stating that the city had shown total disregard to the building state, leading to the calamitous fire. Here is more. And that international news brings us to our first break. There's more coming up for you. Next, we'll talk about Togo ruling party, which secured dominant victory in its legislative elections, and Mozambique, who chose a new leader. We'll also get to see about the escalating panic in Rafah amidst the Israel-Rafah warning, and Biden administration of the refugee programs that is in the U.S. after the one of Trump failed, and the Uganda's cultural heritage. We have this and more lined up for you shortly after the break. Stay tuned with us.
So through the 4 gospel books, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, John, we can know the heart of Jesus in depth.
우리가 느끼는 그 예수님을 성경을 통해 느낄 수 있어서 너무 감사합니다.
And the Jesus that we can feel him through the scriptures, and I'm very thankful about that. Jesus Christ came to this earth for our sins. He carried our sins.
십자가에 못 박혀 죽어 죄의 형벌을 당하셨고,
and he was crucified, and he received the punishment for sins.
무덤에 들어가셨다가,
and he was put into the tomb.
사흘 만에 부활하셨습니다.
and resurrected in 3 days.
이것이 우리가 말하는 복음입니다.
This is the gospel that we speak.
예수님께 우리 죄를 위해 죽으신 이야기.
About how Jesus died for our sins. The purpose of Jesus being crucified.
우리 죄를 담당하기 위하여 십자가에 못 박혀 죽으셨습니다.
He was crucified to pay for our sins.
예수님 십자가에 못 박혀 죽으심으로 우리 죄가 분명히 씻어졌는데,
and through Jesus being crucified, clearly our sins have been washed clean.
참 안타깝게도 많은 사람은 여전히 죄인이라고 말합니다.
However, unfortunately, many people still say that they are sinners.
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back. You are still watching The Ambassador, GBS Global, and we are glad to have you join us today. Now, as we continue, in Togo, the ruling union for the Republic Party, UNIA, clinched a resounding victory in the country's legislative elections that was held on April 29th. Provisional results released by the Electoral Commission, that is late Saturday, revealed the UNIA's triumph, securing a staggering 108 out of 113 seats in the parliament, a landslide victory coming amidst the heating political tensions following the recent approval of a controversial new constitution and a series of crackdowns and oppositions on protests. The results paved the way for the resident Faure Gasibe to extend his 19-year rule under the provision of the new charter. Here is the report. Togo's ruling union for the Republic Party, UNIR, won a sweeping majority in the country's legislative elections that was held on April 29. Provisional results published last Saturday by the Electoral Commission showed it had won 108 out of the 113 seats in the parliament. The voting took place against the backdrop of heightened political tension following the approval earlier in April of a controversial new constitution and a series of crackdowns on opposition protests. The results paved the way for President Faure Gasibe to extend his 19-year rule under the new charter. It will also allow him to take the newly created post of President of the Council of Ministers, a role similar to Prime Minister that is automatically assumed by the leader of the majority party in the parliament. Under the previous constitution, Nasibe would have been able to run for president just one more time. This would have potentially allowed him to stay on as the head of state for a 5-year term starting in 2025. Opposition parties stated that the new post will allow him to avoid these new term limits and extend his family decades-long grip on power as long as the UNIR continues winning most seats in the National Assembly. After boycotting the last legislative election, they had been hoping to gain more seats in the parliament, enabling them to challenge UNIR. Regional observers as a whole stated that they were satisfied with how the election was conducted, but opposition parties denounced what they stated to be irregularities in the vote. Nasibe took control in Togo in 2005 when his father Nasibe Eyadema died after ruling the country for almost 40 years. Well, that was Togo for you. Now moving on to Mozambique. The Mozambique ruling party, the Mozambique Legislation Front, that is Frelimo, named a relatively unknown politician, Daniel Chapo, as its new leader. President Filipe Nyusi made the announcement on Sunday, dismissing speculation that they would stand a third time, despite the constitution limiting president to a 5-year terms. This meant that Chapo would be seen as the party's presidential candidate in elections scheduled to take place in October, as Frelimo has been in power since the country gained independence from Portugal in 1975, but still with the hopes he will help to extend his rule. The 47-year-old law graduate and a former radio announcer was appointed a provisional governor in 2016, and before that he taught constitutional law and political science. Now moving on from Mozambique to Gaza, the Israel-Gaza situation, tensions have been escalating in the southern Gaza city of Rafah as Israel issued a warning of an impending ground invasion. Thousands of residents, many already displaced, were witnessed hurriedly packing their belongings and fleeing the area following the Israel military order to leave. These announcements have complicated the last-minute efforts by the international mediators, including the director of the CIA, to broker a ceasefire. Hamas and Qatar, the key mediators in the negotiations, have voiced their concerns that an invasion of Rafah could derail the fragile talks aimed at ending the conflict, while Israel officials have described Rafah as the last significant stronghold of Hamas after months of conflict, alighting on the necessity of a ground invasion to defeat the militant group. Here is more.
Tens of thousands of people have started packing up their belongings in the southern Gaza city of Rafah and fleeing. This comes as the Israeli military on Monday ordered the evacuation with long-promised and highly controversial imminent ground invasion. The announcement complicated last-ditch efforts by the international mediators, including the director of the CIA. Hamas and Qatar have warned that an invasion of Rafah could derail the talks. But the news of evacuation leaves displaced people in distress as many ask where to go next. In Rafah, people received flyers on Monday morning detailing which neighborhood blocks needed to leave and where humanitarian zones had expanded to. The flyers say that aid services would spread from Deir el-Balah in the north to the center of Han Yunus city in the middle of Gaza Strip. Israel's army said on social media platform of X that it will act with extreme force against militants and urge the population to evacuate immediately for their safety. About 1.4 million Palestinians, more than half of Gaza's population, are jammed into the town and its surroundings. Most of them fled their homes elsewhere in the territory to escape Israel onslaught and now face another wrenching move or a danger of facing the brunt of new assault. They live in densely packed tent camps overflowing the UN shelters or crowded apartments and are dependent on international aid for food, with sanitation systems and medical facilities infrastructure crippled. The UN agency that has helped millions of Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank of decades, known as UNRWA, warned on Monday of devastating consequences of a Rafah offensive, including more civilian suffering and deaths. The United States, Israel's closest ally, has repeatedly urged Israel not to carry out invasion, saying it does not have a credible plan to protect civilians, but even as the US, Egypt, and Qatar have pushed for a ceasefire agreement, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu repeated last week that the military will move on the town with or without a deal to achieve its goal of destroying the Hamas militant group.
Well, we wish them all the best in the peace truce. Now, moving on South Africa. South Africa woke up on Tuesday in mourning following the tragic passing of Ufos Ben, a 30-year-old actor who lost his life in the car accident in Port Shepstone, northwest of province, as confirmed by his devastated family. Mfoseben, a beloved icon in South Africa entertainment sphere, captured the hearts of many with his remarkable talent and captivating performances. His journey in the spotlight began at the age of 12, where he quickly rose to prominence in television industry. Here is more.
The actor died on Sunday in a car accident in Potchefstroom, Northwest Province, as confirmed by his family. The 30-year-old actor's family has appealed for privacy as they grapple with this devastating news. Ben, a celebrated figure in South Africa's entertainment landscape, had a career spanning nearly 2 decades, marked by remarkable performances and accolades. His journey in acting commenced at the tender age of 12, catapulting him into the spotlight of television. Among his notable works are appearances in TV dramas like Justice for All and Zero Tolerance, both which received widespread acclaim and numerous awards. During his high school years, he portrayed a role in the 2011 film Winnie, a biographical depiction of the late Winnie Mandela's life. His talent was further recognized when he was nominated for the Best Male Actors in the telenovela at the 2018 South African Film and Television Awards. Sebeng's repertoire extended to international platforms, including roles in the Netflix production such as Savage Beauty and Miseducation.
My name is Mpho Sebeng. I play Caesar.
Sebeng's passing has elicited profound sorrows from his colleagues and fans, like actor Zola Hashatsi expressed his grief, describing Sebeng as a cherished friend and a colleague whose presence filled a significant void. Ivy Maven, GBS News.
Well, we've lost quite an icon there. Our condolences go to the family and South African nation as a whole. Now, I have good news for you. Let's move on to Uganda. Let's look at the Uganda's cultural richness. Now, today, let me welcome you at the heart of Uganda's cultural richness, where tradition finally met with hospitality. And that is in a Wafe cultural village in Mukono, borrowed away from the urban hustle of Kampala, that has been offering tourists a glimpse of timeless heritage of the Baganda people, of the East Africa's largest ethnic groups, thus boosting the nation's tourism. Let's learn.
Away from the hustle and bustle of the busy Ugandan capital Kampala, tourists are getting a taste of the real Uganda in rural Mukono. They experience of the traditional and cultural norms of the Baganda people, one of the largest ethnic groups in East Africa. Seated on mats inside a mud-flooded hut, guests are served steaming hot matoke, a traditional mashed banana dish cooked using banana leaves. Communal eating is an age-old tradition of the Baganda people. Ewafe Cultural Village is the brainchild of 30-year-old Aisha Nabwanika, who started the company 7 months ago to address the gap in cultural tourism in Uganda. Ewafe Cultural Village is situated about 30 kilometers away from the capital in the central district of Mukono.
Have shown us that the tourist who comes to Uganda always wants to first, to also, as they're having game park drives, safaris and all that, they would also want to have a feel of the culture, of the culture of the country, to know the people, to eat the local food.
At the facility, guests are greeted by traditional dances and musicians, and they are then served freshly squeezed banana juice served in gourds at traditional cup. Cultural Village offers visitors experience in age-old traditions like the preparation of traditional foods and the foods that many Ugandan have been replaced by modern cooking. Ivy Maven, GBS News.
Well, that's a Wafe village in Uganda for you. We could see the tourists enjoying, and we can copy from that. I missed also to be there. I don't know about you. And that international news brings us to the end of our Ambassador GBS Global News. It's been a pleasure having you on board, joining us to the end. And just to do a small recap for you. Today we've talked about the Quad Alliance. It is not a movie, but it is the Pentagon nickname comprising of Australia, Japan, the Philippines, and the United States. And their purpose is to protect the Indo-Pacific. Will it work? We had the Quad before where India was present, but now this is Quad. Will it be able to work? Will it be able to protect the Indo-Pacific? What does the future lay for this? We'll keep you updated. We've also seen about the Kenya devastating floods as President William Ruto pledged aid and reconstruction to the flood victims. And as the death toll continues to rise, we will keep you updated more on the same. And the personal patient information payment option that is coming from Kenya. You don't have to pay if you cannot afford. All you have to give is your data in exchange of payments. We've talked about that. You can be able to find it at the SNAC Foundation. We've also talked about the South Africa who's now blamed for the Joburg deadly fire. We hope that they are going to find justice and the Rafah Israeli drops of their warning. We have seen about the panic in Rafah and Israel as Israel dropped their warning that they should evacuate. They believe that the Gaza that is in Gaza, the Hamas are living there, most of them, and they believe that by flattening there, they can be able to find the solution. So we are looking forward as they look towards a peace truce. We'll keep you updated at the Ambassador as you keep it locked with us. I've been your Ambassador, Jennifer Macau, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at the Ambassador GBS Global tomorrow, same time, same place, 8:1 p.m. from Monday to Friday. And may you all have a superb and the most beautiful and a wonderful afternoon. See you.
Everywhere, GBS.